Right, just before we start this morning, let's just bow our heads and pray. Lord, we thank you that you've brought each of us here this morning. And Lord, I just pray that this morning we will hear not the words from me, but the words from you. And that we'll take home with us what you want to say to the hearts of each and every one of us. Because we ask this in your name. Amen. Well, I've had a very interesting week. Some of you may know I've finished work this week to start a new job next week. And I was just thinking, actually, sat at the back, that what I'm actually going to speak about this morning, and I will share this with you at the very end, actually fits in with the week I've had. But I was thinking the other day, and it was literally only the other day, and I know some of you probably smelt the burning from me thinking. But on a serious note, I was thinking about church. And I was thinking about what we all think church is like and what it's really like. Because many of us in here, like me, have probably been in church for a long time. And our perception of church is probably true, but very different to people who just walk in. Many of us think of them as being friendly, warm places where everyone's welcome and a family of God. And in reality, that's what we are. We're a family. And I very often say when I'm on about church that we actually have all the traits of a family as well. We have problems like any other family. We're filled with people with similarities, people who have something in common. We have skills and interests that connect us. And there's something, which we all know is our faith, that ties us all together. And we often look at things through very similar eyes, as you do in a family. They can be frightened by things that are different, worry and unsure about things that are different and perhaps not perceived to be the norm. Then I thought to myself, I wonder if it was ever any different, because that's the kind of person I am. So I started to think back to the Bible, and I thought to myself, the Jews were very much like a family. They were one big family where everyone was welcome and everyone belonged, as long as they lived in a certain way and they came from a certain line. But before we go any further, some of you are probably wondering, how did she get to sitting with a cup of tea thinking about all of this? Well, the answer is this, if you look at the screen. It's coming. Olivia says it's coming. Like Christmas. Doesn't come, I'll tell you what it is. Right? They've started guessing. They're playing their own game down at front. It's not the Grinch, if anyone thinks it's the Grinch. No? Do I need to improvise, Olivia? Hey? No, it's just a video. Right, it is the John Lewis... Oh. Hey, hang on. It is the John Lewis advert, which I'm sure many of you have seen. Anyone know which is the John Lewis advert? The one with the dragon. If Olivia manages to get it going, we'll watch it, and if not, then we'll just forget it. In the clip, anyway, the villagers are all one. They're all pulling together. They're all getting ready for upcoming Christmas, like many of us have done. And and they're getting ready for the festivities. But Edgar, who is the dragon in all of this, must be known to them all. And the reason... Have we got it? We've got it and we're on.
I can't fight this feeling any longer, and yet I'm still afraid to let it flow. What started out as friendship has grown stronger. I only wish I had the strength to let it show, and I can't fight this feeling anymore. I've forgotten what I started fighting for, and if I have to crawl upon the floor, come crashing through your door forever. 'Cause I can't fight this feeling anymore. And even as I wonder, I'm keeping you in sight. You're a candle in the window on a cold, dark winter's night. And I'm getting closer than I ever thought I might. And I can't fight this feeling anymore. I've forgotten what I started fighting
So back to what I was saying. In the clip, the villagers are all pulling together to get ready for Christmas. Edgar, it's actually called Edgar the Excitable Dragon. Edgar the Dragon must be known to them all because he lives among them. And no one appears scared. Now, I'm sure most of us, if we had a dragon suddenly appeared, most of us would be a bit fearful because dragons aren't normally pictured as being friendly things, but none of them are scared. So they're obviously used to him being among them. However, despite being part of the village, he isn't fully welcome among them. And we actually see that the same is true about Jesus. When we read in John 1:1-5, and then 10-13. It might be on the screen, it might not. In the beginning, there was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. All things were made by him, and nothing was made without him. In him there was life, and that life was the light of all the world. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overpowered it. The Word was in the world, and the world was made by him, but the world did not know him. He came to the world, that was his own, but his own people did not accept him. But to all who did accept him and believe in him, he gave the right to become children of God. They did not become his children in any human way, by any human parents or human desire. They were born of God. And Jesus did come to a world that was different, and John said that the world wouldn't accept him. And if we look at Luke 4, now I'm not going to, you'll be relieved, I'm not going to read you all of this, but if you want to look it up when you get home, or come and get it off me after, you can. It's Luke 4, 14 to 30. And in that passage, Jesus actually comes to his hometown, the town that he's always lived in. And whilst there, he preaches in the temple. And at the end of him preaching in the temple, the people start saying, but isn't this Jesus, the son of Joseph? And they start saying what they know about Jesus. And Jesus is making claims to be the Son of God, and yet he's known to just be one of them. And that story actually ends with them actually chasing Jesus out of the village because of his claims to be different. Because they didn't recognise him and they didn't accept who he was, even though his claims were true. It's not until actually later than them passages that we actually see that Jesus begins to gain followers, because people do recognise who he is. And those two Bible readings and that advert made me think of some questions that I needed to ask myself. And I just thought I'd share those with you this morning, in case there's anybody here who perhaps wants to take them home and ponder them. The first one was, how do I react to someone who is different to me in any way? Edgar, like Jesus, was a bit of an outcast amongst the villagers. He was welcome among them, but he was different. And his difference of breathing fire sometimes caused him a little bit of difficulty, as you can see in that clip, and sometimes ended in disaster with no Christmas tree. The people's reaction to his difference made him feel alone and isolated, and he curls up for a quiet Christmas all alone. And it made me think, what did Jesus do when the people around him were a little different? Because as Christians, we're supposed to be like Jesus. And I thought of two situations. The first one was the lady who washed Jesus' feet with her tears and her hair, and then poured perfume all over it. And whilst everybody else was saying that it was outrageous, it was waste of expensive perfume, and it was far too extravagant, Jesus actually saw it as being an act of kindness, an act of recognition of who he was, an outpouring of all that she had. And then I thought about the lady who was caught in adultery. And I thought to myself, she was circled by lots of people, mainly Jewish leaders, who wanted to condemn her. But Jesus' reaction was the opposite of the majority. And Jesus spoke to the leaders and then said to her, "Get up and go and sin no more." He saw the real person, not the difference or the fault. He saw who they really were. And I think sometimes we need to look at people a little bit deeper and perhaps take a little more time to find out who they really are. Second question I asked myself was, am I willing to go the extra mile to make people feel that they belong? You see, I was thinking about it. We can all make people feel welcome. A lovely smile, a shake of the hand, a good morning, an hello can make somebody feel welcome. But actually making somebody feel that they belong actually takes a little bit more. It takes people going the extra mile. There was one person in the advert of the village that couldn't rest and wanted Edgar to feel fully welcome and a part, and so that he belonged. And she wasn't going or willing to give up until Edgar could go and celebrate with the rest of the village. Instead, she found a way of Edgar's use of his difference. He had, as we all know, dragons have, the gift of fire. And for others, it might have been a bit scary, but for her, she thought, how can Edgar use this for other people? And she realised that he could light the Christmas pudding. She went the extra mile. She put herself out for someone else. Jesus also found ways of going the extra mile. And just two of those, if you think there was a little corrupt taxman who everyone around him knew who he was and crowded him out of being able to see Jesus. And he climbs up into the tree. Not content with just shouting hello, Jesus goes one step further. And Jesus calls him down and he goes to his house for tea. Whilst others were condemning Zacchaeus, Jesus let him know that nothing could ever put him in a position where he was not good enough for Jesus. That even despite his faults, Jesus would still welcome him and he would still belong. Then I thought about the lady at the well at midday, the Samaritan lady. And she was at the well at midday, as I'm sure many of you have heard before, because she was an outcast in the city town. She was somebody who people didn't want to associate with, so she was there drawing her water from the well. And Jesus shouldn't have spoke to her on two accounts. Number one, he was a man. Number two, he was Jewish. But Jesus did speak to her. But he didn't just speak to her. He didn't just make her feel that actually she was worth speaking to. He then went on to reveal how she could have eternal life, to reveal to her who he was. He went the extra mile. He showed them more. The third question I asked myself was, do I encourage others to allow people who are different to belong? You see, the young girl's actions allowed Edgar to be welcomed, included in the celebrations of the village. She put aside herself for the sake of others. She put aside everything else so that those villagers could find a way of making Edgar belong. She gave, Jesus similarly gave up all that he had so that each and every one of us could be welcomed into his family. He died on a cross so that we could belong. And the Bible teaches us in 1 Corinthians 12, which I'm sure lots of you will know, that we are all one body. All different, but all with a part to play in God's family, in God's kingdom, and all equal. And I'm sure many of you will know that this is the fundamental on which actually the Independent Methodist Church is built, because it's built on every member ministry, that we all serve one another and we all have something to bring. And it doesn't matter what our part that we play is. It doesn't matter what our gift is. It doesn't matter whether we clean the church, whether we help with the children's work, whether we make a cup of tea, or whether we're the minister. We're all equal. No job is greater or lesser than another. We are all children of the same Heavenly Father. We are all princes and princesses of an eternal King. And that doesn't just go for us, that goes for everyone outside as well. And these questions, I believe, are actually important and were important for me to ask myself, because we live in a town, in a community, and in a country where people come from different countries, where people have different backgrounds, where people have different talents, skills, different problems. But we're all God's children, loved by him and special. Now then, I know that there's at least 2 people who ain't got recognised. Will it work, Olivia, before we do it? There's at least 2 people in here who I know probably won't recognise this and they'll think, what the heck? In fact, I've just noticed Meg's still here. Possibly 3. But let's see who can remember this. Go on, Olivia.
Making your way in the world today takes everything you've got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away? Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. You want to be where you can see our troubles are all the same. You want to be where everybody knows your name. You want to go where people know people are all the same. You want to go where everybody knows your name.
And that is a really old programme that used to be on the telly. For anybody who thinks I'm only just old enough to remember, I am. I wasn't allowed to watch it if my mum was in, but if I stayed at my gran let me watch her. And the thing was about Cheers was that it was a motley bunch of people who came from all kinds of different backgrounds. It was dead funny. And they all used to meet at this pub. You see, one of the greatest human needs that we have is to have a sense of belonging. To have a place where we're known and we're accepted for exactly who we are, with all our faults as well. And Jesus died on a cross so that each and every one of us could find salvation and belong to his family. Does it matter what we've done? Does it matter what we do? Because Jesus died for each and every one of us. We will mess up because we're human. And the same is true of everyone in God's world. Everyone should find a place within God's family. They shouldn't just be welcome, they should find a place to belong, just like they all did at the Cheers bar. This Christmas, as we remember Joseph and a very, very pregnant Mary searching for a place to be, I want each one of us as God's children to recognise and find a use for people's differences, to go the extra mile to welcome them into our presence and into his family, because it can make a big difference. And that doesn't mean to be welcomed into his family they need to be within our church building. We are actually church when we leave here, and we can actually make people feel that they belong wherever we are each day. And that's what I was going to say about work. I suddenly realised on Friday, I work with lots of Christians, lots of them, and we don't always get on. We have differences and we fall out and things like that, and we disagree and all the rest of it, just like any family. But the Christians I work with from day one made me feel like I belonged at work. And I realised on Friday what a difference that makes. And it then made me think that we as Christians go out to work, well, many of us go out to work, or we go out to certain places within a week where we meet with other people. And we can give people that same sense of belonging that they may not find anywhere else. So this Christmas, as we think of Mary and Joseph, let us be those people who not only welcome in, but give a sense of belonging. Let's pray. Jesus, we thank you that you were willing to come to this earth as a little baby, that you were willing to die that we might know you, that we might become part of your family. Lord, over this festive period, help us to welcome people in, to give people a sense of belonging, whether it be in this building or wherever we are. Lord, that they might know that they are part of your family, that if they don't belong anywhere else, they belong to you. Lord, we just ask this in your name. Amen.